New tonight on Our News Live at 7, why a former Prime Minister says Prime Minister Philip Davis is proving to be a weak leader as calls arise for the Education Minister to resign.
After a busy weekend, police are revisiting the scenes of the country's latest homicides here in communities around New Providence. For the details, stay tuned to Our News tonight.
Plus, 2 men are accused of plotting to kill a cop appear in court. New details from inside the courtroom. Then in Our News at 7:30, a mega marina worth $500 million is set for Exuma. New details are straight ahead. And welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jerome Sawyer, sitting in for Candino Knowles tonight. A $500 million deal on the table for Exuma. The signatures going on the heads of agreement only this morning for the mega marina on Cave Key. Our Jamila Missick has the full story in just a moment, but we begin with this. 2 men already up on murder charges are now facing new charges tonight for an alleged plot to kill a homicide detective. Prosecutors say 20-year-old Algeron Stubbs, along with 29-year-old remand inmate Roger Wallace, conspired to kill Sergeant Raphael Miller on March 13th. Wallace was already in custody for the May 2021 murders of Navad Nairn and Anton Brown. Stubbs was also arraigned for the murder of Georges Chuvas, shot and killed in February near Island Loch on Cable Beach. While in court today, they were not required to plead. Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt presiding there. Bail was denied and they are back in court on June 29th. Well, police having a bloody weekend on their hands with a series of murders to investigate. This morning, they were back on the scene of those murders, reassuring residents that they are doing all they can to fight crime. Our Joshua Williams was also there.
After a bloody weekend, senior members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force took to the streets to revisit areas where 3 homicides occurred near the Andros Rogers High School, Montel Heights and Nassau Village communities. Commanders for these respective areas were on hand providing updates and initiatives being put in place by police to combat crime in their communities.
The Second Chance program for young persons in our area who we have identified following the wrong lead, so to keep them on a positive track. So we have enforcement going on and a proactive approach to target criminals and to keep our young persons out of crime.
And as for the Southeast and Southwestern divisions,
we were able to put out selected special patrols within the Southeastern, especially the Nassau Village area, what seems to be peaking in terms of crime. Those units move about effectively, and they are on the ground actually really trying to apprehend, find out who our players are.
Operation Eradication, where it's a consistent collaborative partnership with the Bahamas Department of Immigration, Inland Revenue, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. We are going to continue to be consistent, deliberate, and focused.
Now, as for the 3 weekend homicides, police say the deceased from the Montel Heights incident is a 17-year-old student of Government High School. Another 17-year-old was shot in that incident. Early Saturday, the burnt body of a man was found near the Anatole Rogers High School. Police say he was known to them. Officers say all 3 incidents are connected.
And so we see the connection, and we, like I said again, we're working some excellent leads in these, about 3 of the matters.
Police are following significant leads into all 3 of the incidents, and it's encouraging the public to step forward with any information. Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks a lot, Joshua. Good reporting tonight. Well, a family of 7 in Andros are homeless after a fire destroyed their home on Sunday. Police say shortly after 1:40 a.m., officers from the Nicholstown Police Station responding to a structural fire in South Mastic Point. There, they met a 3-bedroom home engulfed in flames. Firemen attempting to extinguish that fire, but just could not. Luckily, though, no one was injured. Well, back to that story we told you a little earlier about the situation in Exuma. We'll have that report for you in just a little bit. But first of all, they say when it rains, it pours, and that has been the case here in the capital, at least for the past day. Our meteorologist, Greg Thompson, is standing by live in the Weather Center with our first look at weather. Greg, literally pouring rain for the past day. What can we expect tonight?
Clearing across the northwest Bahamas. Right now, Grand Bahama and Abaco now seeing less clouds, and the cloud mass is moving towards the south. You did mention the rain, 1.45 inches at the airport officially this morning, and in my backyard, 1.76 inches of rain. So we had a very significant amount of rainfall last night. That has all ended, and we expect most of the conditions to be improving as that front pushes towards the south. But outside our studios right now, 72 degrees and mostly cloudy skies. Winds have picked up, northeast winds at 18 miles per hour, so it's breezy out there, and that makes it feels like a comfortable 71 degrees. Temperatures around the islands tonight, 72 in Freeport as well as in Marsh Harbour, Abaco, and in Great Harbour Key, 76 in Alistown, Bimini, over Nicholstown, 73, 75 in Governor's Harbour, Central Bahamas, 76 in Kemps Bay as well as Arthurstown, and you got some showers out there at Arthurstown. Georgetown, 78 in Kubantown, San Salvador, Deadman's Key 79, and the front is going to be pushing into the southeast Bahamas, but temperatures are warm ahead of that front. 79 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, Delectable Bay and Abrahams Bay, as well as Providenciales. Matthew Town in Agua, you round out our temperature profile at 81. Taking a look at our satellite, that frontal boundary now moving into the central Bahamas, but there's an extensive amount of cloud mass behind that and some moisture, so we're going to see a couple more isolated showers here in the capital. But as I mentioned, Grand Bahama, the Abacos, Berry Islands clearing out. New Providence, we should be clearing out sometime by late tonight. Most of the cloud mass moving into the central Bahamas. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us and look at the extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, why the leader of the Free National Movement is calling for the Education Minister to resign. Plus, a new industrial agreement for the public service expected to be signed this week, and later, a timeline is set for the new glass window bridge. The details when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. Well, Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin, will we see her exit from the Davis-led cabinet? That's the question being posed by the Free National Movement, who says that Hannah Martin breached cabinet protocol. Our Berthany McDermott is on that story tonight.
The Free National Movement calling for Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin to resign from her cabinet-appointed post after expressing her opposition to a $100 million project for Paradise Island. The Royal Caribbean project, which recently got government approval, is a beach club project. FNM leader Michael Paintard says if she fails to step down, then it's on the Prime Minister to take action.
Cabinet decisions, once made, require that every cabinet minister is a part of collective responsibility. They take responsibility for the final decision. That matter has clearly gone through NEC, the National Economic Council, and has a cabinet conclusion. So certainly no minister has the right to depart from that convention.
However, Prime Minister Philip Davis is of a different view. In a statement Sunday evening, Davis said Hannah Martin enjoys his full support, adding that the deal remains under review pending the outcome of the environmental impact assessment. Davis also referred to it as a draft deal, but Pintard isn't buying it.
Whether he wants to be cute about it, whether it's all of cabinet or a subcommittee of cabinet, the reality is they have made a determination about this project going forward. Their only hiccup at the moment seem to be because of the great work that the media has done in saying, well, you haven't done an environmental impact assessment, you have not seen an environmental management plan. So he says, well, we're just waiting on those.
In a statement on March 7th, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper revealed approval has been granted for the RCI project. Former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis also supporting the FNM leader, saying the Prime Minister is proving to be a weak leader.
He must take control. He's weak. Weak. Can't even get his own cabinet to agree with his position. That is weakness.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, government is looking to sign off on an industrial agreement for the public service this week. That's according to the State Minister, Pia Glover-Roll. State Minister says the Labour Relations Unit recently wrapped up negotiations with the Bahamas Public Services Union. Now, BPSU President Kimsley Ferguson recently saying he's not satisfied with what was negotiated in that agreement. However, Glover-Roll is saying otherwise.
I think that the package that our administration has put together for public servants is an excellent one, considering that it was long outstanding and there were many years where they weren't receiving certain benefits. So when we speak to what is received in the package financially and the non-financial, I think that is an excellent package for our public servants.
Now, both sides have been locked in negotiations for quite some time. Tensions hit a boiling point last year when members of the union gathered outside Parliament looking to get some answers. As for what's next for the Labour Relations Unit, Glover-Roll says the goal is to be proactive.
We've basically completed all of the long outstanding agreements, and there are some other agreements that we're preparing for that will become due shortly. The Labour Relations Unit of the Ministry of Public Service continues to work to ensure that we aren't leaving any agreements either long outstanding or waiting too long past the expiration date. The goal is to be proactive, to start the conversations and the negotiations before our agreements are expired, so that when expiration comes, we have a quick signing.
Interesting tidbit for you here. Did you know that the world-famous glass window bridge now sits 7 feet away from its original location in 1960? Well, in just 2 more years, another new, more elevated bridge will be constructed. Our Megan Shepard reports in this segment of Work in Progress.
Deputy Director in the Ministry of Works, Robert Muzas, explaining that overtopping causes the closure of Eleuthera's glass window bridge several times a year. What is overtopping? That's when the ocean is rough. Waves crash into the bridge, making it impassable. To this end, a local Bahamian company has been engaged to look at different options for a new bridge.
Our preferred option was option 2. Which basically has the road on the calm side, on piles and columns, so it's elevated.
He says the project has met all of the environmental requirements and will go out to tender by summer of this year.
We're looking to start, hopefully on site, funding, depending on the funding, next year in January, February 2024. I think it's going to be about 2 years. Usually for something like that, we would like it to be 2 years to limit disruption. So we feel we will keep the old bridge open during construction.
As for the existing site, well, Musa says they're looking to turn that into a glass window village.
Maybe somewhere where you could buy souvenirs, some Bahamian arts and crafts, and people could stop and sort of enjoy the view in a safe environment. And also we'll have lookouts where people can safely go up to the rock face and look over. Because at the moment people are walking up the rock face and it's very dangerous because it's not controlled. So and it would generate some revenue from maybe maintaining the bridge. So we have been in discussions with the Bridge Authority, who are very keen on running and maintaining this bridge in the future.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight on stories making headlines around the world. As a former United States president calls for protests, we'll tell you why. Plus, creatives set their lens on Grand Bahama. A new course ignites their passion. Plus, remembering the life and times of Randall Fox on this day in history. We'll have details when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. A New York City prosecutor now appears very close to bringing the first criminal indictment against former president in U.S. history after Donald Trump said on Saturday he expects to be arrested this week. Trump's impending arrest is said to be on charges by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who is investigating whether the former president falsified business records. Trump is accused of concealing his reimbursement to his former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen for a $130,000 payment that Cohen made to porn star Stormy Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford. Trump has called the probe a witch hunt and is lobbying for protests.
Should be careful when he used the term protest. We don't need another capital attack. Even though I'm his supporter, but I think this term should be used wisely because it could bring some chaos.
And they've tried impeachment, they've tried Russian hoax, they try lying. Every day they try to pick this man apart. And what have they come up with so far? Zero.
You can keep going after him and the outcome's all going to be the same, and it's only going to incite more people to come out and support. We're still going to support him, and he's going to run and he's going to win.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin hosting China's Xi Jinping to dinner at the Kremlin on Monday, showing off his relationship with his most powerful ally, just days after an international court called his arrest for war crimes in Ukraine. Washington denounced Xi's visit, saying the timing showed Beijing was providing Moscow with diplomatic cover to commit further crimes. Putin put Xi he viewed China's proposals for a resolution to the Ukraine conflict with respect. Xi praised Putin and predicted Russians would re-elect him next year. Washington has said in recent weeks it fears China might provide Russia with weapons. Meantime, Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry says he intends to mobilize all of the country's security forces in the fight against gang violence. Haiti's military was disbanded in 1995 but was reinstated since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in 2017 after the UN ended its peacekeeping operation there in Haiti. Since then, it has played a limited role. Gangs control an estimated 60% of the capital of Port-au-Prince and have killed hundreds of people in recent months to control more of the territory there. Authorities in the Dominican Republic have arrested 19 people in a sweeping corruption case accusing a well-known former presidential candidate and others of embezzling nearly $350 million and illegal campaign financing. The arrests are the latest in a string of investigations that officials have launched in the past 2 years as part of a crackdown on corruption in that Caribbean country. Prosecutors say the accused paid bribes, laundered assets, and illegally financed the provisional electoral campaign of an unprecedented scale. Well, despite all that's happening in the world, today we pause to recognize International Day of Happiness. It was started by the United Nations back in 2012. Cheryl Walker and Alexandra, who founded the local Marriage, Children, Family Alliance movement, says that gone are the days when a country's success was marked only by economic prosperity.
It recognizes the fact that the progress, the success of a nation is not only based on the economic index, but also on the happiness index and the importance of a people being happy. And so there's a number of measurements that are looked at, including that of the GDP, the freedom of a country, the generosity of the people, and also the perception of government corruption in that country.
Joaquin Alexandra says for many the issue of happiness simply comes down to a misperception of what happiness really looks like.
We must definitely look at our happiness as something that is achievable, and happiness is not a destination, but a pursuit and a journey. And as we are happy, we can be able to accomplish greater things. Unhappy people, give off negative, they're destructive in their attitudes, and of course there's never good outcomes from unhappy people. So we must again be intentional about the happiness of each other.
So despite the rain today, more happiness still to come in our news at 7:30. Our Marlena Leonard shares more about bringing happiness to Bahamian families. So stay with us. It's a story you don't want to miss. Still to come on our news today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was March 20th and the birth of Randall Francis Fox in 1924. Then in our news at 7:30, what you need to know about armed robbery trends in the country and how you can stay safe. That's coming up when our news returns. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was March 20th. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history, in 1782, Andrew DeVoe of South Carolina, who later settled in Port Howe, Cat Island, was declared to be an obnoxious person under the Confiscation Act passed on the same day by the South Carolina legislature. The Historical Society notes the reason for his declaration was his leading a raiding party of the Tories against the Whigs and destroying their property. Then, in 1924, Randall Francis Fox was born in Nassau. He was a lawyer, politician, labor and civil rights leader, author, and founder of the Labor Party in the Bahamas. The Historical Society notes Fox is credited for playing a significant role in some key moments in the labor, political, and social movements in the country, including the taxicab union strike of 1957, the 1958 Bahamas General Strike, the right of women to vote, and majority rule. He was also one of the central figures in the 1967 election, along with Alvin Brennan, who helped to break a tie between the United Bahamian Party, UBP, and the Progressive Liberal Party, PLP, on January 10th. This led to Lyndon Pinling becoming the first black premier of the Bahamas and the first black government for the colony. Fox became Minister of Labor in the newly formed administration. Labor Day in the Bahamas was named the Sir Randall Fox Labor Day in honor of his contributions to fighting for workers' rights in the country back in 2013. Fox died on June 15, 2000. He was 76.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lakaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
Well, any videographers in Grand Bahama looking to sharpen their skills, we have a unique opportunity for you coming in a few weeks. Proprietor of Total Media Bahamas, Lisa Davis, is putting on an Introduction to Videography course in May. Media experts, including journalists and videographers, are to take part in the teaching panel.
Whether it be for them to work in the industry, work for various news companies, whether it's for their own business, to market their own business, or just social media, however it is, we want to create a platform for them to learn from.
Well, Michael Garvey of GB Studios is one of the instructors scheduled to be on that panel.
The creative industry is a $2 trillion a year industry worldwide. $2 trillion worldwide. If we can hone our crafts, if we can hone our skills, we can take a part of that industry, bringing it here, not only to Grand Bahama, but to the Bahamas at large, creating jobs. I believe the creative industry creates 50 million jobs worldwide. So it's another industry that we want to bring to the Bahamas, and we want to bring it with our own professionals doing our own work. And I believe that this course is going to help a lot to hone your skills to become the creative that you actually really have in mind to be.
Well, to learn more on that and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That does it for Our News at 7. Joining us now is our Italia Hall with the latest headlines. Italia, now, you know, Grand Bahama is very close to my heart, as well as I'm sure, as well as anything to do with journalism. So looking forward to that great work that's coming down there in May for the videographers who want to get it on what it is.
Yeah, great opportunity.
Planning to go? You can teach them a thing or two?
Maybe. Sounds like a great idea. Lisa, I'll reach out to you. Well, thanks so much, Jerome. We've got much more to get to, including details on that $500 million mega marina for Exuma. And new tonight, the latest armed robbery trends are revealed. Here are the latest headlines. New tonight on Our News Live at 7:30, the National Security Minister says the current bail system is leading to unauthorized capital punishment. We'll tell you what that means. A heads-of agreement signed for a $500 million project on Exuma. Plus, what you need to know about the latest armed robbery trends and how you can stay safe. And smile, it's International Day of Happiness, how you can make small changes with big impact. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment. News, and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. A 36-year-old man facing a murder charge is behind bars tonight. Prosecutors say Michael Praval is responsible for the murder of Mateo Rule, whose bullet-riddled body was found near Anatole Rogers School on March 10th. We've got more from today's court proceedings in a moment, but first, government signing yet another heads of agreement this morning for development on Exuma. This time, a $500 million mega marina on Cave Key. Our Jamila Mizik was there for this morning's signing.
It is the fifth heads of agreement signing for a development in the Exumas for the Davis administration since coming to office. Government inking the deal early Monday morning for the development of a multi-million-dollar marina on Cave Key. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Investment Chester Cooper noting that the new development will add to Exuma's already booming yachting and boating industry.
But I'm delighted to say there's going to be no dredging, as this marina already exists. So this is a restoration, a revitalization of what Cave Key has been.
CEO of Cave Key Limited, Philippe McLean, says it is projected to be one of the largest marinas in the Bahamas.
With close to 100 slips, and we will be able to get vessels of 150 feet or larger. We know that there's a scarce, that's a scarce in the Exumas, that Cave Key will be very unique in the Exuma because of the marina component, the resort component, and also the innovative, sustainable design of all of the architecture that we're going to put in place in the project.
McLean adding that the first phase will be complete within the next 2 years, employing between 250 to 500 employees at full capacity. Now altogether, the investments in the Exumas are in the region of $1.2 billion. But Cooper says Exuma isn't the only island with investments on tap.
This is a demonstration of investor confidence, not just in the Exumas, but across the islands of the Bahamas. We're also seeing significant investment, queries for Abaco, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama as well, and also some of the family islands.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
All right, Jamila, great news for the island of Exuma. And now to that 36-year-old man who's behind bars after being charged with murder. Prosecutors say Michael Praval is responsible for the murder of Mateo Rule, whose bullet-riddled body was found near Anatole Rogers School on March 10th. Praval was not required to plead when he appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. Praval, who did not have a lawyer, told the magistrate that police officers denied him pain medicine for a pre-existing back injury. The magistrate made a note of Praval's complaint and remanded him into custody. Praval returns to court on June 29 to receive a voluntary bill of indictment papers. Well, Minister of National Security Wayne Munro says efforts are still being made to have discussions with the judiciary on changes regarding how people are granted bail. He went as far as to say that the current method is leading to unauthorized capital punishment.
We continue to seek to advance arguments why persons should not be admitted to bail, particularly when they find themselves to be victims of crime themselves. So I often hear about the cry for capital punishment. We're actually witnessing it on our streets, unauthorized capital punishment, but we have young men still seem to be eager to get in, as the streets would say, this game. And it makes no sense. So we will continue to press the court to not admit these people to bail.
Now, the National Security Minister stresses that it's not intended to immediately label suspects as guilty, but protect them from the high rates of murderers' retribution on the streets.
We're not seeking to say they are to lose their presumption of innocence, but we've had enough cases, I think close to 40% of the murders last year, of persons who were on bail, and so they may be presumed to be innocent. But still, they are becoming targets on the street, and what is worse, they're becoming targets when they're around other people. And so we will continue to urge that on the court, but fundamentally, the court makes a decision.
Armed robberies jumped by more than 30% last year, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. But there's a dedicated unit of officers who spend their days investigating the crimes that have victims staring down the barrel of a gun. Our Jasmine Brown takes a look at some of the latest trends.
Assistant Superintendent Antonio Lavardi heads the Criminal Investigation Department's Armed Robbery Unit. For those dedicated officers attached to that section, their job encompasses investigating armed robberies across the country.
We run a concurrent shift 24 hours because armed robbery is something that doesn't stop.
Last year, police reported 555 armed robberies in 2022. That's a 34% increase over 2021. Firearms were used in 96% of those incidents. And as Lavardi explains, investigating the violent crime is a process.
Once the scene is assessed, then we will deploy the officers into doing various things, which is taking statements, looking for video surveillance, looking for witness. Then we would conduct a debriefing, so we would assess what the officers which conclusion they came to. Based on the information and the leads that we get, we just continue to follow those leads until we can have a successful conclusion.
While officers are hard at work trying to clamp down on these crimes, they say they're noticing some trends, like gunmen targeting beachgoers, people making bank deposits, and using ATMs. And that's not all. The veteran cop says criminals are getting more creative.
Persons moving about in the night, where persons are broad sliding in front of them and robbing them. So you see, as creative as we can get and bring these trends to conclusion, persons are coming back with other things. So we always have to be on our P's and Q's.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, Free National Movement Deputy Leader Shannon Cartwright says the Davis administration needs to wake up and address the ongoing crime problem. His comments follow 3 homicides over the weekend as the murder count soars to 21.
Yes, for the Bahamian people, but also for our visitors. This is something that we must address, and we've said the government needs to get up from its slumber on this issue. It seemed as though that they have waved the white flag in terms of coming up with any kind of comprehensive plan that would bring a level of confidence from the Bahamian people that they know how to tackle these issues. We've said it's not a political issue, but the government must lead. And the government has not been leading on the issue of crime.
Now, Police Commissioner Clayton Fernando released his policing plan earlier this month. Cartwright says the opposition gave suggestions and is willing to assist.
We have said that the government has failed to provide a comprehensive plan on crime. We've been stating this on behalf of the Bahamian people from March of last year. So it's almost a year since we would have made some 46 recommendations to the government relative to crime. Now we're talking about a year and some later, we're dealing with 21 murders in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in 2023.
Extremely wet and rainy conditions in the capital today, but how much longer will it last? Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center live with our first look at weather. Good evening, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. Most of that is off for the northwest Bahamas as the cloud mass is now pushing into the central Bahamas. We'll show that in our satellite picture, but we're going to be drying out. 72 degrees outside our studios, still mostly cloudy. Your winds are out of the north-northeast, picked up in speed now at 20 miles per hour, and your feel-like temperature a very cool and comfortable 70. Satellite view, frontal boundary that dumped all that rain across the northwest Bahamas is now pushing into the central Bahamas. Starting to see some clearing across the northernmost islands, but that front will continue to sag into the central and southeast Bahamas. So those showers and thunderstorm activity will be moving to your area. So you guys in the central and southeast Bahamas could see some showers tonight through tomorrow. That's your first quick check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, taking steps to prevent the spread of synthetic opioids to the Bahamas. And a former prime minister is set to speak at an F&M branch meeting, raising questions about the state of affairs within the F&M. The F&M leader weighs in. And Smile, it's International Day of Happiness. We'll tell you what that means locally when Our News returns. 7-1. The United States is in the throes of an opioid epidemic, making the spread of synthetic opioids to the Bahamas of paramount concern. A recent conference between the U.S., the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos Islands, and the British government tackled security issues in the Northern Caribbean. U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Usha Pitts spoke about synthetic opioids.
It's currently our problem. But as with anything that happens between the Bahamas and the United States, it becomes our problem. And synthetic opioids is one of those situations. These are emerging threats. These are things we need to keep an eye on and make sure that we stay on top of them before they spiral out of control. And when we're talking about synthetic opioids, I think that spiral has already happened, at least in my country.
And Pitts tells us this concern is not hypothetical, as evidence of a presence has been seen already in the country. Minister of National Security Wayne Monroe went a step further.
To be clear, Chief Superintendent Thompson did indicate that there were some cases of fentanyl, suspected fentanyl overdoses in the Bahamas. It is always useful to see what are the threats facing the U.S. domestically, as very often they're imported back through the close engagement we have and enjoy with the United States.
The Office of the Attorney General looking to clear up concerns raised by the Bahamas Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernandez over churches being audited. The Bahamas CFATF Mutual Evaluation Report, published in 2017, identified the nonprofit organization sector, specifically the Christian Council membership, as non-compliant with the FATF recommendation. The statement from the AG's office says nonprofit organizations, including churches, were contacted to gather information based on assigned risk ratings. It adds compliance unit interviews are being conducted to collect up-to-date information on programs and structures that are not financial audits. Additionally, it says most Christian Council members will be considered low risk, with either a light touch review or no review. Well, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis addressing the Free National Movement's Mount Moriah Constituency Association tonight. This flyer making its round, revealing as much. It comes weeks after it was made public that the party's leadership instructed that Dr. Minnis is not to speak at any association meetings. Dr. Minnis recently addressed a Garden Hills Association meeting while Pintard spoke in Centerville's meeting. Mount Moriah Association Chairman Bennett Minnis told the Nassau Guardian last week the party's leadership has no authority to dictate who speaks at meetings. This latest revelation comes as many say there seems to be an ongoing war within the FNM. Well, we sought to get answers from party leader Michael Pintard following this morning's parliamentary session.
There was a recent flyer released of a Mount Moriah Association meeting where Dr. Minnis is said to be the speaker. I know then there has been some saying that there's some infighting within the Free National Movement. Anyone care to comment on that and the notions that he was instructed not to be allowed to speak to meetings?
One big happy family.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank.
When our news comes back from the break, the PM and Education Minister make a visit to a junior high school making progress in getting kids back in the classroom.
Plus, coming up in sports for tonight, a monumental upset for Grand Bahama native and head coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen. We'll give you details on that coming up in sports.
Plus, it's International Day of Happiness. We'll tell you how one group is hoping to make an impact. We have all of the details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis and Education Minister Gladys Hannah Martin taking time out to visit and interact with students at S.C. McPherson Junior High School last week. The visit is a part of the Davis administration's plan to tackle the learning loss issue. Prime Minister Davis says the school is headed in the right direction and that others should follow their example.
It is a tremendous model for what we have been doing in the schools to arrest the issue of lost learning. It's amazing what the school has done. The absenteeism was like 50%, right, up to 365 students or more, and they're now down to 14. What a remarkable achievement. And so it is really touching. And again, I commend the teachers here. With the limited resources they have done a wonderful job, and we have to pay more attention to the resources that they need.
Education Minister Gladys Hannah Martin says despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the school has done a good job in rebounding, while principal of the institution, Shavana Darville, credits parents and students for the role they play in holding each other accountable.
SC McPherson has really distinguished itself because it's one of the hardest hit in terms of attendance, and the turnaround has been almost complete in terms of attendance.
Each one reach one, whether it was parents, you reach out to a parent and say, hey, you have a parent who may be living close by who don't have or who doesn't have the resources that they need. Can you assist them? We had the students who also did the each one reach one. You find your friend who's not coming to school. Find out why they're not coming to school. Tell us if there's something that we can do for your friend.
All right, great news. Well, a huge win for Coach Yo and the Lady Rebels in the NCAA Women's Tournament, taking down the top seed at Stanford. Meanwhile, the Shockers eliminate the Mingos in local basketball playoffs. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Sometimes opportunity comes in different ways. In the case of Coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen, it came with an opportunity to coach one of a low program that's looking to build its way up, that being the Ole Miss Lady Rebels. She took the opportunity, and yesterday, perhaps it paid off, and perhaps the biggest dividend ever. The monumental upset as they pull off the biggest upset of the NCAA tournament, taking down a top seed called Stanford. Let's take a look. NCAA women's basketball tournament action yesterday. Grand Bahama native head coach for Ole Miss Lady Rebels, Coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen, taking her 8-seeded squad up against the number 1 seeded Stanford. And something would have to give here a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. And Coach Yo not only getting it done, she pulls off the upset of the tournament to this point as they take down Stanford in a convincing manner, game that went right down to the wire. But at the end of the day, it was Ole Miss getting it done. 54-49. They reached the NCAA Tournament Sweet 16 for the first time in 16 years. Afterwards, a jubilant Coach Yo on the win. And speaking of basketball, UB Mingos in action over the weekend, trying to keep their season alive. So they took on the Shockers in New Providence Basketball Association playoff play. And, well, let's take it up right here. First quarter. Now, it's actually third quarter action. UB Mingos against Carroll Constructed Shockers. And things did not go well here. Shockers win 74-69. They're advanced to the second round, taking the series 2-0. And to the NBA we go now, where DeAndre Ayton and his Phoenix Suns trying to keep it going after suffering themselves to a bit of a losing skid, trying to make a couple of games in a row. They played the OKC Thunder on Sunday. And, well, let's just say the Thunder had all the noise. They get the win here 124-120, despite DeAndre did not play in this one. He had himself a right hip contusion, so he's out for a minute there already without Kevin Durant. It's going to be tough going for Phoenix the rest of the way as the season kind of winds down. And there it is, a check on sports for you here on this Monday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, it's the International Day of Happiness. We'll tell you how one organization is working to bring happiness to more Bahamian families. Plus, will you still need your umbrella tomorrow? Greg is back in the Weather Center when our news returns right after this quick break. Welcome back to our news. Sounds like there may be some breezy conditions ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia. Welcome back, everybody, for a final look. Yep, the breeze will pick up. There's high pressure building behind the frontal boundary that pushed through the northwest Bahamas, dumped quite a bit of rainfall, up to 2 inches in some locations across the northwest Bahamas. That will move into the central Bahamas tonight, and we expect the clouds to continue to move towards that. That frontal boundary is expected to weaken. That high pressure will slide out towards the west, towards the east, and we will see some dry conditions through the remainder of the week, but conditions will basically stay on the dry and windy side through that period. As I said, that frontal boundary in the central Bahamas, moisture associated with that will wane. It will drag into the southeast Bahamas, a couple of isolated showers hanging back through Tuesday, but that will be what Delia wrote. It's finished, and the high pressure will continue to give us some very nice conditions. Beaching and boating will become a challenge over the next couple of days for the northwest and central islands. A caution flag posted for you. It's rip current risk high, northeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots. It will be gusting at times. Seas running 4 to 7 feet over the ocean. Your high tide will be at 7:52 tonight for the southeast Bahamas. East to southeast winds 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 2 to 4 feet. They will fall light and variable at times over the southeast Bahamas. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day forecast, much improved conditions throughout the remainder of the week. Temperatures will stay near the 80-degree mark, but we do expect another weak front to get here sometime Saturday. But we don't see much in terms of any significant weather with that. Back to you, Talia.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. Well, today is the 10th annual celebration of International Day of Happiness. The day was created by the United Nations, who says the celebration is a way to recognize the importance of happiness in the lives of people around the world. Our Marlena Leonard sat down with a local organization working on bringing more happiness to Bahamian families.
The Marriage, Children, Family Alliance movement is sharing their mission for happiness, which they say should be moved from each individual to the family. Founder Cheryl Joaquin Alexandre tells us, while Bahamians have many reasons to be happy, we've been shaken by the trauma of recent years.
Our default mode has been anger in a lot of cases, fear, and this is manifested in the behaviors of many of our people, of our children, and it's because they are unhappy, and a number of the needs, our basic needs, which include love, connection, acceptance, autonomy, these things are lacking.
Approaching our nation's 50th anniversary of independence, Joaquin Alexandre says family strength will be key in the next 50 years.
My family's health equals our nation's commonwealth. We must look at the condition, the status of families, and work then intentionally to strengthen them as we move to the 50th and even beyond.
Vice President of the Marriage, Children, Family Alliance movement, Jason Wisdom, leaves us with these 4 exercises. First, to smile today, both for yourself and others. Second, to get together with family and friends and make some new happy memories.
Number 3, mindfulness. Take time to think about the things and people which make you happy in life and how to better value them. And the 4th one, journaling. Make a list of things you are most thankful for.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, thanks so much, Marlena. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.